think it was 4. Wait, no, 5. I liked the second one.
The second one ever produced.
The second one's the 5th one, right?
No. The first episode that was filmed was episode 4. And episode 5 is The Empire Strikes Back. Clement knows.
All right. Hello, we are live on YouTube and we are live here on Zoom. We've been live on Zoom. We're here to talk about chain reactions and tinkering. Oh, we have Carlo too. Carlo's one of our ambassadors from, Italy too, right? Carlo and Maria did the class together, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Am I getting my people right? It's nice to see you guys. She also I think A New Hope is the New Hope's the first one? Now I'm gonna be stuck on this Star Wars thing for the whole episode. So it's nice to see you. It says that Carlo has been a partner in the Coder Dojo. He's been using the Strawbees. So Strawbees are really fun. I already had them and I already liked them before I met Lindsay. But Lindsay, when did we meet? It was TCEA is when we actually met in person. So 3 years ago now?
About 3 years, 2 years ago. I think it was in 2018. And it was just a natural collision of great projects, great ideas together.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We really personalities are alike and we like each other. And we've been trying to do something together for a while. Oh, look, my kid put a thumbtack here. That's nice and dangerous, but it might work in the chain reaction. Who knows? But we've been talking, Tom and Lindsay and I, about doing Strawbees and Makey Makey mashups, and this whole staying at home thing we got a little crazy on our around the world chain reactions. So Lindsay, do you want to talk a little bit about what the tinkering studio did with the chain reactions, how they kind of put that out there and we jumped on it, or what happened to you? Because I know you took up your whole apartment, I think.
Yeah. So just last month, the tinkering studio, also that's based in the Exploratorium, started this online craze on Twitter using the hashtag #roundtheworld_chain_reaction. And that is a hashtag I recommend everyone to view, during the webinar, after the webinar, to talk about how we can incorporate chain reactions using materials in our household. Of course, we are using Makey Makey and Strawbees, but of course we want to, extend beyond what we have. So utilize the materials that we have. So the chain reaction is basically, it could be anywhere from making a very long journey for a ball to travel through, or it could just be things knocking over. So it's not specifically, there's no really right way to make a chain reaction. And in this last month, Colleen and I have been creating a few chain reactions since then, also using the Strawbees classic, which is the roller coaster run. So we have a roller coaster run that we use to create the tracks themselves, and also creating these geometric shapes in case you don't have boxes or it's not really easy to just build on top of furniture, that you can kind of build these projects. So you can kind of build a space, using the materials, using the straws to create, taking over shape. So I can connect these together, for example, using Strawbees. And for those of you that don't know what Strawbees are, we make these colorful connectors. So we have connectors like this one leg, and we have one with 3 legs here, and even some that are with 5 legs. But of course, you're not stuck with just building with just these particular connectors. You can actually combine them together and make your own. So for example, if you wanted a connector that had 6 legs, you can combine 2 of these together and make a 6-legged piece. And we also have a lot of pieces that you can create. You can create your own construction set. So what that means is that we have these straws that you can fit on to the legs of the Strawbees like this. But you can also combine the straws using the connectors. So if I wanted to make an even longer straw than this one, I can take this straw and put a Strawbee connector inside of it. and then combine them together like this. And I can extend it. So I can even give it even more length using the construction pieces that I have. So,
ooh, can I interrupt you for like a second?
Of course.
Only because I built this, well, I was going to show you something Valley did, but I built the roller coaster yesterday, and I had not done that before. What you just did with the extender legs. And what's super cool about it that makes it different than like when if anyone hasn't done a chain reaction, it is like a Rube Goldberg machine. It is basically, what can I get to roll from this way to that using whatever's in my house. So using Strawbees is kind of fun and a little bit of a cheat, I suppose, because it's more straws than normal. But the cool thing is that part of the tinkering process in a chain reaction is like getting the ball to roll the way you want, getting the ball to roll fast enough, slow enough, etc. And so the fact that I could actually adjust the height of the straws, I didn't know I could do that. Like, I didn't realize that I was adjusting it just by that one structure already built. So I think that's like super, super cool. So sorry, I had to interrupt you with that.
That's all right. I mean, actually, to spin off of that, there's a question in the chat about, is a chain reaction Rube Goldberg? So a chain reaction is kind of a whimsical contraption, and you have inventors like Rube Goldberg. So Rube Goldberg is actually the name of an inventor behind a certain type of chain reaction. And basically, the idea is that they really are the same. So you're trying to devise an overly complicated way of accomplishing a simple task. So anywhere from rolling a ball, or maybe knocking like a domino effect, like literally domino effect with dominoes, to trigger an event. Or you can actually trigger multiple events. So for example, you can trigger events where you could make something, you can make the Makey Makey trigger sound using Scratch, but that could be at the end, or it could be during the process. So you can have multiple events. And it could also be a spectacular failure. So as we can all understand, not always does a chain reaction work properly. And in a way, part of the tinkering process is that what you start with most likely will not be the end result. You probably will modify and change it at some point.
Yeah, and Michael is telling us, Michael, you can actually change the way you're chatting and everyone will see that, but yes, Rube Goldberg is a cartoonist and an engineer. I actually shared in the chat the post I wrote up a little bit about Rube Goldberg. I think it's funny because it's like one of those names that's become a verb, and we almost don't really understand what he did before. So I did a little bit of research and saw all of the cartoons of his weird contraption ideas. And to me, Rube Goldberg was just like the inspiration for Inspector Gadget and Wallace and Gromit and all this like, whole type of personality that, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had changed the chat and I hadn't. So I apologize, Amanda. I fixed that. But yeah, and so yes, chain reactions are super, super cool and super fun. And Rube Goldberg has inspired a lot of us. But did he ever actually make things, or did he only actually do the cartoons of them? Because this is something I don't know. I looked and I did a little research, and I did see that his heir is now hosting Rube Goldberg challenges. Mindy says he just made the cartoons. He didn't actually make the things. So that's what I kind of thought. That's what I was like, it's kind of weird that we're all kind of stuck on these concepts. But that when I was a kid, Mousetrap was a big game. And I think that is also inspired by Rube Goldberg. So that's pretty cool. To get back to chain reactions and Strawbees, although I don't think that's too different, but the tinkering and the playing is the important part. And I think that's what makes chain reactions sort of a fun entryway into hands-on learning. If someone hasn't like spent an hour playing to figure something out before, this is a great way to start. Like I had my kids sitting here yesterday and I kept sending Lindsay pictures and I was like, they won't really help me. Like they helped a little bit with this, and then they were like, we're gonna make our own thing. And Valley, someone called her. So I don't have my phone, I don't know where I put it, but she made a phone stand yesterday. So I'm gonna just use this to show you. She's just sitting there. She's like, I made a phone stand. So now she could FaceTime with her grandma using this phone stand. Like it holds the phone in place. It was pretty fun. And then she made a snowman. I haven't sent you that picture. I'll send you that. It's complete with gloves and a carrot nose and a hat, and it's really pretty funny. So I think, you know, the idea is to get kids and adults playing to have fun because it's fun. And it took me a very long time to set up mine. So if you want to talk about yours, and then I can share a little bit about what I did, and then maybe our surprise guests will show up. It looks like some of them are here. But
Yes, yes.
yeah.
So the chain reaction that I created here is behind me. It's a little big, so I might have to just rotate my computer as it works. But the idea that I was going for was just basically making a ball travel using generating a little bit of potential energy, the buildup of potential energy. So building the track so the ball doesn't fly off was a big aspect that I was going for, but also trying to trigger a sound to go with them, to play when I play with the Makey Makey. So actually the ball that I have here, I'm using this small plastic ball, kind of like a ping pong ball that's rolling down the track, but it's actually trying to knock then one of these aluminum balls that I created. So, you can just wrap a bunch of, in your hands or against the floor or table to make a round sphere. Sometimes I put a marble or coins inside to give it a little extra weight, because what I found that even though this ball will roll, it may not be heavy enough to, trigger, when it touches the ground and a button. So I try to actually make it a little heavy. So this is actually a little heavier than it looks, where you can even just wrap aluminum foil around a marble. But the marble is a little too small for my track, because my track, and I'll show you here, my track is a little too wide. Of course, I can adjust it using the Strawbees like this, making it a little bit thinner. And I could roll the marble on like this. But of course, I wanted to use a much heavier ball. So that's why I actually have like a few coins inside this aluminum ball. So I'm going to try to trigger my chain reaction using the roller coaster track. So it has like a small kind of like pachinko machine, and it has these aluminum foil. And I'll show you with my actual piece here. So I have these kind of aluminum foil like switches. So inside the straw I'm using, and the aluminum foil I have connected with actually a small thin wire like this that is actually going through. And actually this part was the hardest part of the chain reaction, making the track, even though that took a lot of time, especially just balancing it so it didn't go too far, so the ball wouldn't just fly off. It was actually making this part here to trigger and make the sound effects. That was the absolute hardest part, because when I want to, connect the wire here, I want it to be just touching, but I also want this to have, no friction.
Yeah.
So that part was actually quite the hardest. So
and we did that. We did that together last week. We kind of played together, worked through that. That was fun.
Yeah, I was using one of your previous Instructables with the distance,
rate and time. Yeah. That actually was an Aaron build. That's his idea.
And it's a great idea, because it was a way that I could actually utilize the ball. Because actually, it's never going to make the same sound every time. It's going to actually have a different output every time the ball lands. So it might make a different sound. I could assign something where I can do an animation in Scratch. So then I can get more points for a certain trigger, or I can, make an animation, so I can actually make a bit of a gamification. And, the past couple of weeks, I made something even bigger that took over my whole living room. I mean, these chain reactions can be, very invasive and infectious of a whole living space.
Yeah, I am distracted by Andrea's comment about Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, because I think like I think when I was a kid was like the epic movement of chain reaction type weird inventor ideas in childhood movies and shows, and because I just keep thinking about weird things. There was that, and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is actually one of my favorite movies ever. And they have this whole crazy thing about eating breakfast where it cracks the egg and opens it, and it's all very much like a Rube Goldberg cartoon. And there was another cartoon where it's Max Fleischman, I think, and I think I put this in the blog post about it. But Max Fleischman builds toys for orphans. In the cartoon, it's like a man who builds all these toys for orphans on Christmas out of just the stuff around their house or around the building, and it's like one of the best cartoons that I just stuck in my memory of like, oh, I can just take everything that's around me and play with it and find a new way to use it. So it's pretty fun. Were you going to show us yours? Were you going to make it go? Or were you just going to talk about it? I didn't know.
I'll show it again. I mean, I know it's a little hard, so I think actually this time
it's probably too hard. It's probably too hard to show, but if you wanted to try.
Yeah, I think I'm going to actually take the computer on a journey with the ball.
Nice.
I'm
Yours
gonna
is
try
very
again.
large.
What's
Yeah.
that?
Yours is very large. It like takes up your whole kitchen.
Exactly. I actually wanted to get even bigger, but for the sake of the webinar, this is the smallest I decided to make it, and even that was a little too much. But of course,
Yeah.
it's kind of part of the fun that you can actually really expand. So let me just set this up, and I'll even turn on the sound again. Like that.
And I think half of chain reactions is the setup, like the setup every time. My children have already played with mine this morning, so it's probably not going to work when I go to show you guys.
So, of course, at Strawbees, we really like to build big. So this is kind of a natural thing we just always like to do. And of course, we have to remember sometimes small is good. Okay, so now I'm gonna start it over this time. So as you can see here, we have this track. So I'm gonna be releasing the ball right here, and it's gonna fall and hopefully trigger
Nice.
our switches at the bottom.
I see. You have different switches for each one. Cool.
So I'll know which one is probably the most common. So let's try it.
Ooh, going.
Oh, just barely worked. Just barely.
Yeah, I hear it. I heard it clapping. It did the scratch clap.
Yeah, so
That's fun.
again,
Colleen, you might want to feature Lindsay's video.
Oh, am I not?
Well, when you talk on my screen, it focuses on you.
Okay. But I think she's done now.
I'll try it again.
Yeah,
sorry.
please.
Yeah, do it one more time. I'll have your video spotlighted. I'm sorry, everybody. It's
quite
early.
honestly, you can't just
so
do a chain reaction one time.
yeah, Jackie, there you can already go to Strawbees site and make this roller coaster. She already has this posted. So it's all, let me find that PDF. That's where I think I found it. The PDF you guys shared. I'll look for it. You do the thing.
All right. So let's try it again. Oh,
Nice.
barely touching, like very slightly.
Oh, I heard it. It's like still going. It's stuck.
Now worked too well.
Yeah, that happens. So on mine, because our special guests are joining us any second, I'm gonna, I guess. Oh, he's already
There
there.
it is.
Eric, well, you can see what I did. Let me show you what I did because I think it's fun. I almost accidentally muted myself just now. All right, so first I wanted to share a couple of weird things. Like, So you can take the ping pong ball and you can cover it with foil. You can use a coat hanger. This was the only coat hanger I could find, but Lindsay and I talked about this coat hanger and how it might actually make a really cool switch, because maybe the ball could hit this and spin and touch something, because binder clips are conductive and coat hangers are conductive. And if you don't have fancy copper tape, you can take a piece of foil and a glue stick and make your own copper tape. I've been trying to tell everyone that because they keep forgetting. And also, if you do have copper tape, I learned this from Josh Berker. Put it in a Ziploc bag and just feed the tail out, and then you won't get the nasty mess of copper tape everywhere, which I think Tom had that experience pretty recently and was like, what am I gonna do? So yesterday I went on a Strawbees building adventure and I built a roller coaster, but I really wanted to build the grabber. And then, oh, this is gonna be hard to do. I wanted to build the grabber, and I got to keep the iPad on because the iPad has my scratch game. All right, so I wanted to build a grabber, but I wanted it to, when it grabs, I wanted the ball to be the thing that sets it off. So one side is earth and one side is space. And I'll have to unplug it to bring it closer for you to see. But also my husband, Aaron, thought, instead of a ping pong ball, use an Easter egg, which I thought was genius and fun, because also an Easter egg doesn't roll the same and it's just kind of hilarious. So I kind of gamified the chain reaction, because to play, and then this is why my kids won't stop doing it. So I set up a timer. I've apparently already hit start. So let me start my timer again. I set up a timer so that when you pick up the ball, that presses a key on Scratch and the timer starts. Mm-hmm. And the ball, there's a virtual ball in Scratch, and I'll bring that up closer as it rolls down. But if I pick it up and I can't get it up here, the timer still goes. Even if I press up like 10 times, it doesn't start over. I've got it so that it just does that. So I have to pick up the ball, and there's no sound effects, but I can see that it's rolling on my Scratch, and then I have to set it down, and it has to land. It actually landed perfectly. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to move the computer so you guys see if I could do that again, because that was kind of
Colleen,
magical.
It's like before I was doing this, before I came online, my chain reaction worked perfectly, and then
that was
recording, it did not work or just barely worked, and it started to trigger a little too much. It's just those little slight things that you do. I could have breathed on it wrong just now.
See the egg, right? So I grabbed the egg. Now I'm not going to do it. I grabbed the egg, and I don't know if you can see, but my timer's already started over here. Now I'm having the failures I'm supposed to have. There we go. I'm having a hard time getting the egg. Okay, I got it, and I place it. No, it doesn't roll. That's what you're supposed to do. And there it goes. It actually stopped. So let me try to bring that closer to my little Makey Makey egg nest. So now that I can move it. But you can see it kind of rolls off and on. It isn't perfect because it's not supposed to be perfect. But I want to show you this because my daughter built it. So let me see. How can I unplug it? We'll just do that. She made a little egg drop out of Strawbees. And actually, it's really cute. I had to put more foil because I was having the problem you had. But let me show you how she actually built it, because I think it's pretty adorable. She just used the connector guy to make a little landing pad for the egg. So I originally had just the copper tape, but it wasn't enough space. So you and I talked about this during one of our play sessions, where the surface area that a Makey Makey has to have to cover is a little bit complex with the ball. So that's kind of why it gets hard. So it's better to have your Makey Makey connections as like the landing point, right? Because otherwise it's probably not going to roll across and go off. And that's one reason I have this. So let me show you my Scratch game. And someone asked, how did I get Makey Makey to work on the iPad? This is a new magical thing. The camera adapter, when you plug it in, it just works now. So on my Scratch game, which I'll share the link in the timer. Oh, I apparently went 107 seconds and I started the timer over again. My Scratch game still needs a little work. Let me see if I can I want you to see what it does, which is probably silly of me, but, oh, I unplugged the Makey Makey, so I can't really do it right now. Okay, it's too many things, but I'll share the link and you guys can play it virtually that way. But anyway, in my Scratch game, I just made a timer and I have the timer be set off by pressing one arrow key. I actually can't remember now if it's space or arrow, but it doesn't matter. Let's say space starts the timer, and then when it lands, it stops the timer because it's a different key press. So I will this in an instructable later. I just made it yesterday, so it's a little bit crazy. And I did actually want to show you this, Lindsay, because building the wire on the grabber was interesting because at first I was going to try to insulate it, but instead I have just foil caps here, and my copper tape goes across any part where it goes straight on a Strawbees. But I couldn't do that here on the corners, so the tape has the backing on it, and it just is loose. Like if you tried to have a Band-Aid, you know how you have a Band-Aid and it can move because that one part that isn't sticky. So that's all I did.
What I really love, you know, on the talk of like using copper tape and, you know, foil, another material I really love to use is this fabric conductive fabric tape. Actually, this is tape that I used to use before I, you know, I mean, I've always been a maker, but before I started actively building with it, I actually used to be a fencer, and fencing is a massive circuit. Although now it is partially, you know, Wi-Fi based when you connect and score in the Olympics. But, you know, we have these like metal vests that are called lamaze in saber fencing, and you actually use this conductive fabric tape to actually cover holes because you kind of puncture holes.
Really?
And this material is really excellent because when you fold it or bend it around, it doesn't like, you know how copper tape can tear when you bend too much? Whereas this conductive fabric tape, you know, can handle a lot of bending and it doesn't tear very easily.
Not to be a total product placement. I mean, I know the whole webinar is a product placement, but the booster kit is one thing that we don't really see people buy them very much, but they have inside of them that amazing conductive fabric tape. So it's pretty cool. And they have a piece of conductive fabric. And these huge alligator clips. They're like, I don't know how long they are. Tom, do you know, are they, I want to say like 18 inches versus 10. But Kristen's asking how much that fabric tape is. I think it's around the same as copper tape. I think it's about $10 a roll. It's pretty expensive.
It's the same.
I think it's the same. I buy the 1-inch kind all the time because, like you said, you can't cut your hands with it. I think it's safer for students, safer for kids, and it's just dreamy because it doesn't tear. So like, it's the best. But you do have to use scissors.
That's the only thing. All right, so I think one of the inventors, one of our special guests, is getting pretty antsy, excited.
I can see him back there.
Can I introduce him?
And Jay is, please introduce him. Jay's coming. He's almost here. Y'all, Scratch is down, so I can't share my Scratch game. That's super weird, by the way.
Oh, that's okay. I'm sure it'll go back up. So I'd like to introduce to everybody our first special guest. Actually, we're all special guests here, but so I'm based in Stockholm, and our inventor of Strawbees is coming from Gothenburg, Sweden. His name is Erik Thorstonsson, and we're going to release to the world his fantastic chain reaction.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Do you hear me?
We hear you.
Cool.
I love that pink sweatshirt.
Yep, matching the good vibes there.
Yeah.
Love the product.
We're colorful.
It's fantastic to be here. That's the thing. It's been glorious already just listening in. So I've been, like when you were talking about things going wrong, that's the most important part of the chain reaction, because that's when you start the thing that you build through the chain reactions is this endurance, because you've done it before and you can see the kids going over and over, looping and fixing it. And that's one of my favorite things. Also for myself and also for my colleagues. So it's a classic thing we do. I might have gone a bit overboard with my chain reaction, and I haven't tested it a single time. So unfortunately, one of my features, I really wanted one particular thing to happen, but I didn't have time to put him up. But I can introduce this character to you anyway and describe him. So I don't know if I should just run with.
Yeah, just go for it.
Go for it.
So this will be. I'll see. This is the first time I'm using this. Can I shift the camera or no? Nah. Luckily, I can just snap this off and then we'll see.
Yeah, sometimes we
So
have
I
we'll
will-
call in with our phone, but that's. Oh, you're good.
I have a strange laptop. See if I can. Do you still see me?
Yeah, we still see you.
Oh, I
You
don't
see
see
your
it.
forehead?
My forehead. That's but the best part of my. Okay, so we have to fire up. I have a couple of a sequence of things that's supposed to happen here. So I'm just going to check that this is starting. So I was supposed to. Thought I was going to have a one person help me out at least. So my first, the first part of this is actually this thing. You see a
Oh,
weird
cool.
thing here.
Mhm.
That's an airplane target. So I was going to crash into that to start my chain reaction. And it works, but now I'll just do it manually. Because it's going to be really hard. Okay, are you ready? Let's see if this works. Is everybody up for some
Yeah,
failure fixing? Okay,
yeah,
Go for it.
and you can see it? Yeah,
we can.
I hope this works. This has never been tested. So this is my first chain reaction. It's basically cheating, so it's going to hopefully...
Oh, look at that! It did work.
Oh.
You made your crane
Let's
go.
see. Oh, we have the first. It missed here. This is classic.
It missed. I love it.
This is how it works. I'm going to see if I can trigger this. Well, we have an interesting failure here where I apparently can't close the circuit. Oh,
Oh, and Erik's using the quirk box. So
Yeah,
if
in this
Vivian
case, what
wants to,
this is, yeah. Let's see if we, classic. Oh,
here goes.
there we have it. So it
I
I
releases
love
this-
that. That looks really good.
So Erik is using
I have
these
to make it,
magnet
make it.
feet. He's using
Oh.
magnets.
Woo!
He's using these
Oh.
magnet feet against the whiteboard. That's
Oh, those are
he was
cool.
able to make a very simple track with a set of straws and then connecting it to the magnetic feet, which is part of our creature creator
love-
kit.
Oh,
You
those are
practice
from your
what you preach.
freezer kit.
Preach. So my phone had turned off because I was actually using the Makey Makey connected
Makey Makey.
to my phone.
I heard it.
But apparently, if you go into screen lock, that doesn't work. So it went into screen lock. Ah!
I love that.
Let's repeat. This is a classic mousetrap thing. So we drop it
Okay.
in. If we can
Uh-huh.
continue.
Oh, and then is it
Oh.
a catapult? Oh, look at the roller coaster.
And this
Oh.
is the last part.
Erik,
Camera
here.
bring your
down.
computer down.
Camera down. There it
There we
goes.
go.
Oh, I love it. It's so slow. It's like it builds so much tension when it's so slow like that.
This is where we're supposed to close the final circuit and give my, because I love one thing in chain reactions is conservation of energy. So I save energy in something
Where
that's
this is
high up,
at.
that has some weight.
Yeah.
And then, so that was supposed to close the circuit and do something that I use a lot, release a parachute thing. But in this case, something that was heavy. And then this guy was supposed to jump up.
Oh my gosh.
Mr. Tiny
There's a
Head.
guy. It's a whole person.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mr. Tiny Head was supposed to use the energy and jump up and be super happy and also say hi to everyone. But but that's it. I was playing around a lot.
I'll be
this
back.
morning.
I'm
Erik,
gonna get the
what,
snowman. I'm gonna show
Erik,
him the
what was
snowman.
the servo motor supposed to do on the roller coaster?
Actually, I can show you the things I used here. The servo motor on the roller coaster, it released the ball. So this tower, I can go through the chain if you want to again.
Yeah, do it.
Go
What was
for it.
supposed to
Slow.
happen. So it started here where I used a tilt sensor that sends over Wi-Fi to the tower. So when that fell, the tower rose.
Erik, really quickly, can you move your computer slowly so that people can kind of follow along? Because you're shifting it and it's hard to follow. Although we all love it, we just want to really see zoom in on the details.
No, so there's a lot of motors and movement here, but that's because I used the stuff I had laying around. And then this tower tipped over another tower, a helix. And this was where the first failure happened, where it missed this very rudimentary switch that works exactly like the Makey Makey. I love these very shitty switches because they also work, and sometimes it's just get it done and see what happens. And then that fired up this one that released the first ball. This is from what you say we swim around in the kids' playgrounds with.
Cool.
Got some of these.
Oh, the ball thing.
And here comes, and used my classic to use. This is actually my first old Makey Makey. So I brought it here. First, I think it's a Spark Fun version. That was supposed to scream out, "We love Makey Makey," and then jump down and trigger this little seesaw that you saw maybe here.
Oh, look at that.
The seesaw is great, and that's because using the fulcrum in the right way. This is a bit of engineering to tip over another tower. That then closed another one of these famous shitty switches, where I used some duct tape as a hinge. Make it repeatable there. And one thing that when you make switches is scrunch up a little bit of the aluminum foil, so it really hits and closes the circuit. So you see, I wanted it to be low, not too advanced. Then it closes the circuit and blinks the light. This was also supposed to be like the blinks. This is one of my favorite reuses. I wonder if probably everyone here collects all these deodorant balls. So this is from deodorant.
Okay.
Roll on. Really get
good.
good.
Oh, yeah, the thing. I get it.
Yeah, really good coasters for small robots and stuff, and also great at light dispersion. And then we came to the classic mod run, and that one worked, which was a wonder because I just dropped it down. So that's it.
The marble run is actually an iteration of the roller coaster run. There was a link that I shared in the chat.
Yeah.
So you can learn how to build that with the link sent. But fortunately, we will also be posting the resources after the webinar as well.
Gotta stop moving that camera.
I was also supposed to trigger a little thing with this can because it's also really fun. So that was one thing that happened that you might not have caught. Okay, totally so that was my little chain reaction. Was testing some stuff.
That's good. And I really agree with your thing about the switches because I had the same problem trying to do this one, that it came to the point where I was trying to get it so that the egg bridged the circuit, but it might have actually been a lot easier if I'd let it just land on it, right? And I think one thing we didn't share that we need to tell everyone is that this clip, how can I do this? I don't know who made this clip at Strawbees, but someone made this amazing clip. Was it
I made it to be able to put it in. So I was also supposed to make a huge gong. It's just a good way of snapping it into the structures and making them sound.
Yeah. So it's really cool. I can hook my Makey Makey on or a microbit and I can clip it right to the straw. So it that's why it was able to be on there. And I was going to use 2 Makey Makeys, but I decided to just use the one. So that's really fun. Jay is our other special guest here today. He's also wearing pink.
Oh, it's planned. Erik and I coordinate every day, but through telepathy. So one of the inspirations for Makey Makey was actually like people taking apart keyboards, and then inside the keyboard are eventually two metal things that when they touch together send a key press. And then people would attach those to bigger buttons or bigger apparatuses so that they would close. This is like an early hacking workshop run by a special group before Makey Makey was invented. And that's one of a few things that were going towards it. And this actually follows on Drawdio too. So notice that was like 2 things touching, not a person touching a thing, but 2 things touching. And Drawdio was like that at first too. It just had a little alligator clip coming out of the back of the pencil, clipped onto the paper, and then you would draw from there. And only after Drawdio was created and only after Makey Makey was created did people realize that one of the best ways to connect Drawdio or Makey Makey was to not have a thing touching the pencil lead or a thing touching a thing, but to have the hand and the thing together. And that but kind of by accident, although we knew it was possible. We didn't know that would be the dominant mode. We thought it would be like kind of subdominant mode. And like what you're seeing in your switches that you're creating is kind of the problem of two things touching. Kind of works, but when you have literally under your hands control the exact touchingness of one thing to an object, then you're like, oh, it's not working, I'll press harder, or I'll deform my fingers or whatever, because the hand's freaking amazing. So now you have this problem of two objects touching. It kind of works and everything, but you're not like mentally manipulating the shape of one of those objects like you are with your hand. So it's hard. It's, it has challenges.
Yeah. But it's a fun and simple challenge. I think you've done it a couple of switch workshops through the ages, and there's a lot of great switches that are much more fail-proof than these ones. But it's fun to show this is where you start, and then you improve it because you get a little bit annoyed. That's also one of the sources of innovation, that you get a little bit annoyed that this doesn't work. But then you also figure out that, like you did with your hand, that this is a much better. This device is amazing.
No, but the switches is really interesting. And Colleen and Will, who should be on this call, probably, Will McFarlane, and myself have been working on complex switches. So like sequences of things happening in order, or as the water level rises or as the sponges dry out, but there's several sponges and they dry out at different rates because they're skinnier than the other ones are. And so you have a kind of analog sensor that can take place either over long periods of time or quickly. And this is something that we could use to make kind of like surprising or long-term like time-lapse reaction machines or something.
Yeah. I made exactly that. And everybody in my office said, don't do that ever live. But it's one of my favorites. It's basically using just a piece of cardboard. And then one thing that the rube or the chain reaction makes us tips over a bit of water into that. And the capillary force is just slowly wet the cardboard. It's like a really, really slow fuse.
Yeah.
And then it happens. That's amazing. And I loved it. But it's really not good for a session like this, because then you would have to sit here for 20 minutes.
It only works with time lapse.
Yeah, exactly. But it's lovely.
The thing you said about getting frustrated, I think that's the important part, that teachers don't hold on to a lot of times, because we don't want our kids to be frustrated. But it's actually the good thing, because I know I can talk very seriously while I'm wearing my Strawbees hat. It's very important to get frustrated, because I feel like that's the moment right before you figure it out, right? Like the most frustrated you get right
kids
after
give up,
that.
and kids have breakthroughs.
And then it's euphoric. You're like, oh, I did it. It's so exciting. Yeah.
But it is true that kids give up and that kids have breakthroughs. And that's the reality. I mean, you know better. You're on the front lines more hours time integrated across time than I have been. But that's why people are afraid of it, because it's not clear how to make someone maximally confident in, say, 7 subject areas all at the same time. And the truth is, I think maybe that any given kid, unless they're unique, in which case they might be failing in some other areas, quote unquote failing in some other areas, they can't be confident in 7 subject areas at the same time. So we might have to like give up the dream. And you're right that the struggle is real, and after the struggle comes the payoff. And sometimes before the struggle hits the payoff, there's a real disappointment. And that's kind of like, that's what scares people, but it's also reality.
But I think it's also the part that, like, we as a teacher, a lot of times you get stuck in the, well, I got to help them because I don't want them, I don't like seeing them frustrated. And it's really hard to hold back, because if you don't, then they don't have the breakthrough. So I remember one particular time where I'm going to let Tom ask you a question here in a second, but I just remember one particular time where I had someone coming and I was doing an invention literacy workshop with students, and they had wanted to take apart a computer keyboard to use with little bits to like do something, to use the microphone. They were going to break apart a laptop and get the microphone out and use it with little bits. I knew there was no way they were going to be successful at it, but I still let them do it. I still let them spend, 45 minutes that day breaking out, finding the microphone, because to me, that's still important to find the microphone. And it's important to go, hey, I have a really cool idea and I can't execute it. I have to think of a new way to execute it. And I think that's what we yeah, we're all trying to teach our students perseverance, and that's one way of doing it. It's just, it takes a lot of time. And I think actually would be really interesting to talk to everyone in the chat about is how we're going to do that from this remote stance. How are we going to teach kids to keep persevering when we're way over here and they're in their own house? And that's kind of an interesting thing. So so I have been working on classes for kids at home, and I am going to put, I think I might put this chain reaction in it, Lindsay, so that one of my next lessons is going to be this. But also this STL file I will share that Erik made on a blog post. It's just 3D printed. And Tom has some questions for Erik and Jay. So
Erik and Jay, this question I have is actually from a conversation I had probably 6 years ago. I'll not forget, with a friend of mine who's an engineer, professor of engineering at Purdue University. And he was completely against the teaching of Rube Goldberg chain reaction machines as it relates to engineering. And he said, so his beef essentially was, if I boil it all down, is that engineering and Rube Goldberg machines or chain reactions are on complete opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to engineering. In other words, he said engineering is about making things work and simplifying, whereas a good Rube Goldberg machine or chain reaction actually makes everything more complex. So I love chain reactions and Rube Goldberg machine, but I'm curious how you feel about this idea of teaching of engineering design concepts and associating them with engineering, or Rube Goldberg and engineering. Where do you stand on that?
well, you broke them.
No, I'm good. I actually agree with him. The problem is just, what are we teaching? So if you want to teach efficiency, maximizing profit, minimizing energy expenditure, and things like that, well, we shouldn't be messing around with like abstract, roundabout ways of getting somewhere. We should go straight to the point, right? And so, okay, let's say that's true. Fine. Now, what about if we're teaching art? Well, okay, pretty easy to see that Rube Goldberg machines have a part to that. But also, what if we want to have a playful space to discover engineering and design concepts mixed together, not siloed? Then we want a space where lots of solutions are yeses, and we want a space where there's a lot of playfulness and laughter, even if it's very serious, and even if it's just, one moment of laughter and 3 hours of hard work, that's fine. So I guess the question is, what style of learning do you think leads to an internal motivation and an excitement amongst a group of people? And what type of goals are you wanting to achieve? Is it the efficiency? Is it the design? Is it the art? And even if it's the efficiency, what type of learning process do you think leads someone to be a successful engineer? Is the MIT mantra of like hacking is what leads to cutting edge engineering? Do we want all cutting edge engineers, or do we need some practical engineers? And by answering these questions, you can answer, is Rube Goldberg a good way to teach engineering? And it just kind of depends.
I think it's not about teaching engineering, it's about fun, right? And it's about teaching a mindset.
It's a combination for me. Like, I agree with everything you said there, as usual, and very eloquently. But for me, there's something in this where I just want to build their skill to I want them to solve all these small problems, like on their own together in a slightly chaotic thing, where they actually start observing, testing it. It's, for me, one thing that I wanted to introduce is this slight chaos, which takes away the feeling that they're being assessed, which actually they have this small problem, part of this chain that might or might not work, but they will be doing lots of little engineering exercises in that. It's, for me, it's not about becoming engineers or something like that, but it still builds some core skills of observing, changing, and believing in their own ability to actually draw conclusions and implement a new solution. And that is actually, we can see a lack of this in engineers because they always go to state of the art or something and then try to modify, at least a lot of places where I've been. So you can't draw that everywhere, especially not at, for example, Media Lab that know how to hack. But yeah, I would like them to come up with a new and test a new idea.
I think Erik and Jay. Oh, I was just going to say Erik and Jay are different types of engineers than the one you're mentioning.
Well,
Sorry, Lindsay.
What I don't know who this person is that was exactly who's arguing against chain reaction machines. Oh, sorry, was Lindsay going to say something?
Yeah, Lindsay was going to say something.
I was just going to add one more thing. But if we reference like the creative learning spiral, where, we're talking about passion, peers, play is part of it, the 4 Ps. I think when you're building a chain reaction, there's a lot of opportunities for you to make it your own. Like there can be some people that really zoom in on small details, like the tinkering aspect of engineering, making sure that the ball rolls perfectly and it doesn't roll off. But it also could be an opportunity for someone to build a project that is special to them, that maybe it's about, like in Japan, for example, I've seen at one of the wonderful science centers using actually a kind of chain reaction to talk about climate change. It was a ball that was rolling through like a city and a community, and it was like a really beautifully sculpted piece that it kind of had a different spin, that the ball would like fall in different places and trigger different events based off what was happening in the environment. So it could be detrimental for, overfishing. And I thought that was a really interesting exhibition of showing, instead of just having a sign, for example. So it was like a way to incorporate storytelling or a way of, displaying a concept or idea that's not really thinking so much about how the ball rolls and the potential kinetic energy, gravity forces at work. But that was like the one bit I wanted to add, but go ahead, Jay. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, I don't know. Lots of ideas here, but the student or the learner doesn't come to the workshop or the chain reaction machine as like not having had previous experiences. They have had all kinds of formal lessons and they've been taught what kind of a failure they are or are not and what they're good at. And so bringing the chain reaction machine to them in the modern era of schooling and of, like, say, algebra as one of the things that makes the most people fail out of high school or something like that, you're bringing it to them as something that disarms them. It's not just the chain reaction machine. Like, is that the best way to teach joints and switches? Like, I don't know if it's the best way or the most efficient way, right? But when you come in as a teacher or a facilitator, you're coming in authentically. If you can disarm the student from their past fears, or the learner or the builder from their past fears, and the chain reaction machine, in addition to your approach and your, how confident you are or how curious you are, the chain reaction machine colors the experience for the learner and the builder. And we're not just trying to build, or I should say, are we trying to just build one type of engineer, or do we want to have several types of engineers? And are we speaking to the most advanced engineers, like the professional engineers, or are we speaking to all humans as potential builders in the sense that everyone should be able to write on a Post-it note, but not everyone has to write a book. So is true of the literacy of engineering. We have to speak to all types of people as engineers if we want to invite them in. And maybe they will become professional, but not if we don't approach them in a way that can work for them given their past experiences when they walk through the door.
You guys went real serious on our show. That's usually really funny, and I think I can't remember who just said it. I think it might have been Elizabeth, that we don't have to have an either or mindset anyway, right? Like that's part of being an educator, is that we're here for all learners and we're here for all types of kids. And I think chain reactions are extremely playful and fun, and they really are a way to teach a kid about tinkering and problem solving that I can't think of many other ways to do it. Lindsay asked how you have a group facilitate a whole chain reaction, and I can't find it, but once I did, and it was based on this idea from my friend David Saunders. I had kids build Sphero obstacle courses. Like it was almost like a chain reaction, but it was like a mini golf with Sphero, and you had to program Sphero to get through the obstacle course, and I can't believe I can't find it because there's a video of a kid that I just remember. He was trying to build a Connects swing to swing the Sphero out, which is like completely illogical to let a child take a $100 robot, right? That's gonna swing and land, and it's all like, it's not good ideas, but it's like, that sounds really cool. And he spent his entire lunch building this Connects swing, even though he normally failed every class, right? Like he normally didn't work at anything. He didn't want to do other stuff, but this was the kind of connection he could make and he could enjoy. And so he did this, I have a video of him, and just at that one moment, the one time the swing worked, I think it was Connects and cardboard. And he's just like, I did it. I failed so many times and I did it. And I think that's an excellent thing to give our kids at any time. Lisa in the chat also said that she has her kids building chain reactions at home with everyday stuff. And I think that's really cool. And she also said she wishes they had Makey Makey and Strawbees at home. And we do too. we wish they did too. And
Yes.
If there's ways to do that, we're working on trying to figure out how we can do that, so that a school might buy from us and mail to a house or something. I mean, we're all trying to figure that out right now.
I think, during this period of 2020 currently, we're trying to make it work how we can. And, of course, again, I want to really, really stress that, the contents that we have featured in this playinar is that, this is our own implementation. So my implementation of using Strawbees, we have an endless surplus of toilet paper rolls that are potential for making great ball racks, but also that, your implementation might be entirely different. But I think the core concepts shared here can be applied, like using pots and pans as buttons connected to the ground and using for the Makey Makey as a big surface for buttons. And, I think that, we actually really want to see how everyone else would implement, with your kids or with your students remotely, like even encourage them to create a chain reaction using just books. Like we have like tech-based ones, but what you could also create something using books. Like I saw on one of the previous Exploratoriums webinars that they were using, and actually conveniently, I picked up the Art of Tinkering book here.
Oh, nice.
But books are actually a really easy way to make a ramp for a ball. So you could actually just take apart your whole library, take all your textbooks, make a chain reaction pretty easily.
Awesome. We are hitting our time limit. And we have a lot of people really enjoying each other's ideas in the chat. It's really nice to see. Mindy is sharing telling people they can DM her on Twitter if they need to get some of her ideas about mobile play kits, mobile learning. I think that's really fun. And we have lots of resources on both our pages. So Lindsay has an amazing amount of learning resources at Strawbees. Did we share that link? We'll share that link here, but we'll also share it in the blog post. Oh, I'm sorry, Mindy's not a STEAM teacher. I apologize, Mindy, but I do know who Mindy is because she is someone who's followed me and done some of my projects. And so anytime someone's done a project that I've made, I happen to remember their name. Mostly because I get really excited. There's something really exciting about if you build an idea and someone does something with your idea. So it must be amazing to be Erik and Jay and see people do these amazing things with your ideas all the time. But okay, that was just y'all are ready to go. I could tell. It's time for us on our coast time to drink more coffee. It's time for the Swedes to go to bed. Probably not. It's only dinner time for you guys, right?
Early dinner.
Yeah. We are going to take all of the resources. I actually will have the whole chat saved when we end this. So I probably won't post the chat because that's a little weird, but I will go through and find all the links. It might take me more than a day to do that, but I will share all the resources that have been shared in the chat. I will share the video. I'll share the STL file. And Lindsay, you're welcome to take the whole thing that I share and put it on your Strawbees blog too. So you can, is it learning.strawbees.com for the
Yes.
guides? Ooh, I guess right. And she already has really great things. You can already do this roller coaster thing from home. And the grabber, I just followed those tutorials yesterday. They're really great, quiet videos. And I forgot to tell you that my 6-year-old then wanted to just sit and watch them. She just wanted to sit and watch Strawbees videos because the music is calming and she liked just watching people make things. So really fun. And so we'll share all the video and everything. And thanks everybody for all your time and your serious thoughts and your playful thoughts. And we'll see you next time.
Actually,
Thanks for doing this.
Colleen,
That
I'm
was great.
wondering.
Oh, you're going to ask a question?
Well, when is our next? We may be changing the day and time that we hold these. So be aware that if we do, we'll announce through social and newsletters and whatnot.
Our next webinar is for Microbit and Scratch and Makey Makey together with Katie Henry. And we said early May, but we never really set a date. So I don't think it's next week. We might actually take a week off. We've done 6 weeks of live Tuesday mornings. And I don't know about y'all, but mornings for with children during this time of school, homeschooling is pretty hard. So yeah, we might change it, but we're going to have another webinar coming soon. So if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get all that information. And we'll email out to everyone the links to everything. And yes, all the videos are available on our YouTube channel. If you just go to the youtube.com/makeymakey, all our videos are there. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Colleen, Erik, Lindsay, and Tom for putting this together. This is really inspiring. Thank you.
Oh,
Super
good.
cool.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
for coming.
so much for having us. It was wonderful.
Yes.
Also
Yeah.
incredibly inspiring.
And it
It's
was
really
fun.
nice. Really nice to have.